Going downhill. An elderly lady visited the doctor with a list of complaints about her deteriorating health. Her joints were stiff, her back ached, her vision was on the decline, and she had a weak bladder. "I'm afraid," said the doctor, "you have to accept it. As you get older, things will start to go downhill. After all, who wants to live to 100? The woman replied, "Anyone who's 99. The Rose. An elderly couple had dinner at another couple's house, and after eating, the wives left the table and went into the kitchen. The two gentlemen were talking, and one said, "Last night we went out to a restaurant, and it was really great. I would recommend it very highly." The other man said, "What's the name of the restaurant?" The first man thought and finally said, "What's the name of the flower you give to someone you love? You know, the one that's red and has thorns." "Do you mean a rose?" "Yes, that's the one," replied the man. He then turned towards the kitchen and yelled, "Rose, what's the name of that restaurant we went to last night?" True love. An elderly gent was invited to his old friend's home for dinner one evening. He was impressed by the way his buddy preceded every request to his wife with enduring terms. Honey, my love, darling, sweetheart, pumpkin, etc. The couple had been married almost 70 years, and clearly they were still very much in love. While the wife was in the kitchen, the man leaned over and said to his host, "I think it's wonderful that after all these years, you still call your wife those loving pet names." The old man hung his head. "I have to tell you the truth," he said. "I forgot her name about 10 years ago." The wrong way. An elderly man was driving on the motorway when his mobile phone rang. It was his wife. "Arnold," she said, "I heard on the news that there's a car going the wrong way on the motorway. Please be careful." "Hell," exclaimed Arnold. "It's not just one car, it's hundreds of them." Lifetime prescription. An elderly man returned from the hospital looking worried. "What's the matter?" asks his wife. "The consultant said I have to take one of these tablets every day for the rest of my life," the husband replied. "That's not too bad," said the wife, trying to cheer him up. "It is," said the husband. "He only gave me 7.
An elderly man asked his wife to prepare him a chocolate ice cream sundae. She went to the kitchen and returned half an hour later with a plate of scrambled eggs. Seeing this, the husband complained, "Where are the sausages? I asked for sausages." The doctor said to his elderly patient, "I've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is, we've had to amputate both of your legs." "What's the good news?" asked the patient, horrified. "The man in the next bed wants to buy your slippers." After years of suffering from impaired hearing, a man was finally given a new hearing aid that allowed him to hear perfectly. Monitoring his patient's progress, the doctor remarked, "I'm sure your family are delighted that at last you can hear again." The man said, "I haven't told them yet. I just sit around and listen to their conversations. I've changed my will 5 times in the last 2 months. A London widow decided to prepare her will and make her final requests. She told her solicitor that she wanted her ashes to be scattered all over Selfridges. "Why Selfridges?" asked the solicitor. "Because," she replied, "that way I can be sure my daughters will visit me twice a week." A middle-aged woman accompanied her husband on his annual medical checkup. Afterwards, the doctor took her to one side and said, "I'm afraid I have some bad news. Unless you follow a strict routine, your husband will die. Every morning you must give him a good, healthy breakfast, and in the evening, you must cook him a nutritional meal. You mustn't burden him with any household chores. You must keep your house spotless, and you must attend to his every need. I realize it will mean extra work for you, but it's the only way to keep him alive." On their way home, the husband asked his wife what the doctor had said to her. "Oh," she replied, "he said you're going to die." "How was your golf game, dear?" asked Jim's wife, Helen. "I hit the ball pretty well, but my eyesight got so bad I could never see where it went." "Face facts," said Helen. "You're 72 now. Why don't you take my brother Jack along?" "But Jack's 81 and doesn't even play anymore." "I know, but he's got perfect eyesight and could watch your ball for you." So Jim agreed to take Jack to his next game. At the first hole, Jim sent his drive sailing into the distance. "Did you see where it went?" he asked Jack. "Sure did," said Jack. "Well, where is it?" said Jim as they set off in pursuit. "I forget." An elderly man went to the police station to report that he thought his wife was trying to poison him. "Are you sure about this?" asked the officer. "Absolutely," replied the man. "I am convinced that she's poisoning me slowly but surely. So what should I do?" "Don't do anything yet," advised the officer, "but remain vigilant at all times with regard to what you eat and drink. In the meantime, I'll talk to your wife and attempt to ascertain whether or not your suspicions are justified. I'll get back to you." 10 days later, the police officer called the husband and said, "Well, I've spoken to your wife. In fact, I talked to her on the phone for 2.5 hours. Then she came down to the station and we talked for another 4 hours. Do you want my advice?" "Yes," said the husband anxiously. "Take the poison." Two old ladies met in the supermarket. After inquiring about each other's health, the conversation turned to their respective husbands. "Oh," said one, "Bert died last week. He went out to the garden to dig up a cabbage for dinner, had a heart attack, and dropped dead in the middle of my vegetable patch." "Oh my," exclaimed the other. "What did you do?" "Came here to buy a cabbage." A senior couple were arguing about the wife's practice of leaving her car keys in the ignition. "But if I take them out of the ignition, I can never find them again," she explained. "That's all very well," the husband said, "but what if someone steals the car?" "No problem," the wife insisted. "I keep a spare set of keys in the glove compartment.